December 20th, 1943. The sky over Germany, a high-altitude void at more than 26,000 feet, where the air slices like glass and the thermometer sinks to 76 below Fahrenheit. In that frozen barrage of flak bursts and red tracer lines, something happens that no one speaks of for half a century, an act suggesting that even inside the most ruthless war in human history, honor can still take the controls. It is the story of a German ace, Franz Stigler, and an American pilot, Charlie Brown, two enemies who would finish the day as something far closer. Franz Stigler was born on August 21, 1915, in Amberg, Bavaria. Aviation was in the family. His father had flown as an observer in the First World War. At 12, Franz climbed into the wind in a glider for the first time. Before the next war, he flew commercially for Deutsche Lufthansa. In 1940, he joined the Luftwaffe. By December 1943, he had 22 victories to his name. He was 28 and a single downed bomber away from the Knight's Cross, the highest German decoration for a pilot. On the other side of the sky stood Charles Lester Brown, born October 24, 1922, in Weston, West Virginia. A farm boy who would become a B-17 aircraft commander. He was only 21 in the Army, yet told his crew he was 25 to project steadiness. December 20th, 1943, was his first combat mission in command of a B-17F named Ye Olde Pub. The target that day, the Focke-Wulf plant in Bremen, where FW-190 fighters rolled out. Steel backbone of German air power. Bremen bristled with more than 250 flak guns, one of the Third Reich's hardest targets. At 11 a.m., the 379th Bomb Group crossed into Germany. Ye Olde Pub carried a crew of 10 and 12 500-pound bombs. The 10-minute bomb run began at 27,200 feet. Outside, the cold was murderous. German gunners found their mark early. Before the bombs even fell, a shell smashed the plexiglass nose. Engine 2 died. Engine 4 shuddered, coughing toward failure. The bay opened, the bombs dropped. Mission achieved on paper, but the return would be the real battle. 250 miles over enemy territory, a stretch many never survived. The formation moved on. The crippled bomber lagged and dropped, alone, exposed, a hawk's shadow on the snow. Messerschmitt Bf-10-9s and Focke-Wulf 190 pounced, 12 to 15 attackers at once. For more than 10 minutes, they came in waves. Engine 3 took hits and could give only half power. In the killing cold, only 3 of 11 guns still spoke. Worse, the oxygen system was riddled. Charlie Brown and his co-pilot slipped into blackout from oxygen loss. The B-17 began to fall. Seconds before ground impact, Brown jolted awake and wrestled the bomber level. The tail gunner, Sergeant Hugh Eckenrode, was dead. Several others were badly wounded. Brown himself carried shrapnel in his shoulder. Behind them, the tail was shredded. Up front, the nose cap was gone. Electrical and hydraulic systems were failing. Controls responded like wet rope. Top speed was down to about 133 miles per hour. Ahead loomed the Atlantic Wall, fortified coastal guns, sharp-eyed and unforgiving. Brown told the crew to bail out. Capture, he argued, was better than death. They refused. They would ride it out together. Ye Olde Pub limped past a German airfield near the town of Jever. On the runway below, Franz Stigler was fueling and patching his Bf-109. The day before, he had downed 2 B-17s. One more, and the Knight's Cross, honor, recognition, the very measure of his war, would be his. He took off, climbed hard, and closed on the stuttering American bomber. What he saw through his gun sight stopped him cold. This was no ordinary target. It was, in his words, the most damaged flying airplane he had ever seen. Through gaps in the skin, he could see the crew slumped at their stations, the dark sheen of blood, the exhaustion of men hanging on by threads. A memory surfaced from North Africa. His commander, Gustav Rodel, "You are fighter pilots, first and always. If I learn that any of you shoots a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself." Looking at the American crew, Stigler thought, They are as defenseless as men in parachutes. To fire would be to kill the helpless. His trigger finger eased away. His hand found the rosary he carried. The decision was made. He edged up to the B-17's right wingtip, so close that Charlie Brown could see his face. Brown squeezed his eyes shut, convinced it was a nightmare. He opened them. The German was still there, riding formation in the bitter wind. Twice, Stigler tried to signal, land and surrender, or turn toward Sweden, neutral and safe. The battered Americans didn't understand. Brown chose England, 250 miles across the North Sea, perhaps on one or two engines, with almost no chance. Stigler moved again, sliding in tight on the bomber's left side, and began to fly beside it. Below, flak batteries studied the silhouette. A friendly Bf-109 escorting a limping giant. They held their fire. The German fighter became a shield, a silent passport through the Atlantic wall as the strange pair floated past hundreds of guns. Only over open water did Stigler break away. He looked across the gap of air and salt spray, raised his hand in salute, and turned back for Germany. Brown pressed on, scraping the last ounces of lift from a torn airframe. He barely reached England and crash-landed at RAF Seething. Ground crews circling the wreck looked for an answer to a riddle. How had that heap of torn metal stayed aloft at all? During interrogation, Brown told the improbable truth. A German pilot had spared them. Intelligence officers shut it down. No stories that might soften attitudes toward the enemy. Silence, officially. Stigler stayed silent for his own reasons. To spare an enemy in combat could mean a firing squad. The war ended and the currents of life pulled them apart. Brown went home to West Virginia, finished college, rejoined the Air Force in 1949, and served until 1965 before working at the State Department. Stigler emigrated to Canada in 1953, built a business, and raised a family. For 45 years, neither knew the other's name. For 45 years, Brown woke in the night to the same mission, the same cold. For 45 years, Stigler guarded a secret that could not safely be told. In 1985, Brown began to search. Letters went out to the German magazine Jägerblatt and to veterans associations. I am looking for the German pilot who saved my life on December 20th, 1943, over Germany. 4 years passed, hundreds of replies trickled in and proved wrong, until 1990, when a letter arrived from Vancouver, Canada. It was me. On their first phone call, Stigler recounted, detail by detail, the aircraft, the escort, the parting salute. Brown wept. He had found the man who made the impossible choice. When they finally met, the reunion felt less like a handshake and more like family rediscovered after decades. In the video of that first meeting, Stigler fights back tears. "I love you, Charlie." They lived only 300 kilometers apart, Stigler in Vancouver, Brown in Seattle, and soon became inseparable friends. They met often, phoned often, and spoke together before other pilots. Brown said that once he found Franz, the nightmares stopped. Peace, at last, after so many winters. They left this world in 2008, months apart. Franz Stigler on March 22nd, Charlie Brown on November 24th. In a book he inscribed for Charlie, Franz wrote of a brother lost in 1940 and of a second spared on December 20th, 1943, 4 days before Christmas. Its pilot, Charlie Brown, is as dear to me as my brother was. Thank you, Charlie, your brother, Franz. In the end, the story is simple and astonishing. A choice to stay human when everything screamed otherwise. A duel of honor in the sky that turned into a brotherhood without borders. And the question that lingers long after the engines fall silent. When hatred surrounds the cockpit, who do we choose to be?